So I studied behavioral science at business school. I love tapping into why we do what we do and why we think the way we do and why we make certain decisions. So how many of you have your left thumb placed over your right thumb? So in some parts of behavioral psychology, that means, keep your hands up, that means that you're extremely, extremely intelligent, right? You can look around and check with the people next to you. You can verify with your colleagues, see if that's right. I did do that for a reason, not just get you to all look silly. We did that because so much of our lives today are separate, disconnected. We have left and right, black and white. We have things that we love to do. We have things that we have to do. We have things that we look forward to and can't wait for. Then there are things that we wish we quite frankly never had to do. And then we have this thing called work. Then we have this thing called life. We have this thing called family. We have this thing called friends. And this constant disconnect, disharmony in our life creates more and more friction within ourselves, within our organizations, and then eventually the wider community and even the world. Mindset 2 is a bit more about how much we have to unlearn about ourselves. How many of you have ever been told by your boss that you're too slow? How many of you have ever been told, don't look at that. How many of you have been ever told by your boss that you're too bossy? And you're thinking, yeah, right, you know? How many of you have been ever told that you annoy other people when you work really fast and diligently? Yeah, everyone's heard these things. This is your opportunity to unlearn what you've been told about yourself. So what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to answer 2 questions based on a reflection of your own self. Not how you are at work, not how people perceive you, not how people think about you, but how you think about yourself, right? I'm going to ask you to push to go to that level. There's a great philosopher called Cooley in the 1800s. He said that today, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am what I think you think I am. Let that blow your mind for a moment. I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. We're lost in a perception of ourselves. So our image of ourselves is made up mostly by what people think of us. If people think you're outgoing, you're more outgoing. If people think that you're someone who likes to be the front of the party, you behave that. We interact, we almost act as method actors, creating an image in society. So what I'd love for you to do is I'd like you to choose whether you believe you're more outgoing as a person or more reserved. And I'd like you to choose for yourself. If you're outgoing, I want you to head to this side of the room. And if you're reserved, I want you to head to this side of the room. You can choose now, and you can't be in the middle. I'll tell you why. One of the greatest challenges that organizations have faced over time is that people have started being engaged in the wrong places. We've had to learn skills, portray ourselves, present ourselves in job interviews, say that we're good at things even when we might not be very good at them, because we believe that that's what's required. But actually what the most powerful organizations today have found, that actually when people unlearn those and go back to their root environment where they thrive, then they're able to have a huge impact. There's a great conversation between Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. And Steve Wozniak looks at Steve Jobs and he said, you know what, you're not a coder, you're not an artist, you're not an engineer, you know, you're not a technology guy, what do you even do? And Steve Jobs, in his usual Steve Jobs way, says, musicians play their instruments, I play the orchestra. And I love that line because it so much sums up a deep understanding of where you thrive. And this is the challenge that organizations have, needing to unlearn what we've made our people think they are, but allowing them to go back to their source of inspiration. This is something I created called the Quadrant of Potential. What you'll see here is the blue section says not good at and not interested. When you do what you're not good at and you're not interested in, it feels pointless and it can lead to depression. When you do what you're not good at and you're not interested in, it can lead to depression, it can lead to anxiety, it can lead to all of those negative emotions. Now look at the yellow section of the quadrant. Not good at, but interested. There's a lot of stuff in the world that we're not good at, but we're interested in. For me, social media used to be one of those things. I was interested in social media, but I wasn't good at it. But that's something where you see potential and you feel excitement. When you're trying to learn something that you're not good at, but you're interested in, you feel a buzz. It's exciting. Look at the gray section of the quadrant. The gray section of the quadrant is good at, but don't love. That's what most of us end up doing for work. We do something that we're good at, but we don't really love it. It doesn't fulfill us. And that ends up being a profession, but it stresses us out. And finally, in the orange quadrant, you have good at and love. That's where you find passion, and that's where you experience fulfillment. What I'd love for you to do is today, tomorrow, sit down with your partner, your friend, and actually reflect on 2 to 3 things in each section of that quadrant. Do you know what you're good at and love? Do more of that. Do you know what that you're not good at but interested in? Do more of that. Spend your life in the orange and yellow side of the quadrant, and you will never, ever have to experience that pressure, that stress, anxiety in the negative sense. You'll still experience stress and pressure. I experience stress and pressure, but it's good. It motivates me, inspires me, not bringing me down. Let's move away from spending time in the good at and don't loved and not good and not interested. And if you feel that sense and it's strong for you, water that, grow that, nurture it. Don't tell it to be quiet. Don't push it aside. Don't ignore it, because one day you'll ignore it so much that it won't be there anymore. It will get so quiet. Don't let that happen. All right? Don't let that happen. And finally, your passion becomes a purpose when you use it in the service of others. When you identify what you're good at, what you love, your wiring, your qualities, your values, your skills, your abilities, and you use that to make a difference in the life of other people, that's when you're going to feel most fulfilled. Fulfillment is not just about doing good. It's about becoming better and then doing good with what you have. People often ask me about my meditation routine or my morning routine. I meditate for 2 hours a day. I have done for the last 13 years. And one of my favorite meditation practices that I do, which is the smallest and shortest part of my meditation, is that I refine my intention. What I mean by that is every day I write down thoughts in my mind that are either weeds or seeds. Seeds are ones that I want to grow. Seeds are things that I want to plant because they're full of love, compassion, empathy, kindness. And the weeds are greed, negativity, manipulation, power, control. So every day I'm literally gardening my heart by pulling out every weed and plucking out every weed that I no longer want to plant in my house. Because guess what? Weeds end up looking like seeds. Often in our life, the weeds and the seeds look exactly the same when they start growing. And that's one of the biggest challenges. We're wired for generosity, but we're educated for greed. And we're so deeply wired for generosity, but everything's trying to pull us away from that. We've been told 2 lies in our life. The first lie is, you're nothing. You're not worth anything. You haven't got anything. That's the first lie. The second lie we've all been told is you can be anything. It's a lie. It's not true. The way we're wired defines what we can do with that wiring. And therefore the truth is, you can't be anything you want, but you can be everything you are. What does the leader of the future look like? What is the leader that's going to change and shift, not only personally, but purposefully shift humanity through the incredible work that you do here at GE? What does that leader look like? And the number one answer that came to my mind is that that leader is a connected thinker. And that connected thinker has 4 key elements that I'm going to be sharing with every single one of you today. And as I extrapolate and unpack what I mean by that in this session, this story for me really sums up how many opportunities are lost, how many opportunities are missed, because today, a lot of our thinking, a lot of our thought processes around work, life, personal well-being, perseverance, and connection are totally unaligned. And I really want to dive into those with you today. So what I'm fascinated by is what makes a leader truly limitless? What helps us think beyond our wildest dreams, but also create solutions with purpose that revolutionize people's lives, that create real impact, meaningful impact, fulfilling impact in people's daily lives, something that you've been doing for years. How can we truly do that? What is the leader that will put that above everything else? Human experience above everything else. Because you can have access to all the technology in the world, you can have access to all the intelligence in the world, but without the desire to create true human impact through true human potential in all of you, we start getting that disconnection settling in again. And when I was doing this research, I spent a lot of time researching what it is about the leadership, the executives that have had impact in the toughest times, economically, socially, politically. What is it that has made them different? What is it that has made them stand out? And this is what Harvard found. So Harvard found that the connected thinker was the difference maker. And the way they looked at this, they looked at 3,000 executives. Leading executives who'd redefined industry, shifted progress, made an impact when it most mattered. I want to ask you a question. What do you think is the number one skill that these 3,000 leaders believed was the difference maker? Some of the best products in the world that we use today have been brought about that community thinking, where your problem is my problem, your success is my success. And they've seen that this spirit not only transpires across the whole organization, affecting people, but it even makes a huge difference to our inner fulfillment, our inner space. See, competition mentally and for our brain is good to a certain degree. But after a while, when that competition seeps into envy and jealousy, if you look at the body map of emotion and how that chemically looks, it's painful. So no matter how fragmented, disconnected you feel, when you start thinking like this, when you start living like this, when you apply the community mindset, you're able to infuse that energy inside the whole organization. And when we hear a colleague's issue that they're having in the workplace, and our mind says, I already know, like I'm used to this is common. As soon as we do that, we lose the ability to connect with people with empathy, compassion, and genuine understanding of what they're really going through. As soon as we think we've already been there, right? We've always done it that way, has been the phrase that has led to the most failures in the world. But this is the first session that I'm doing today, and it's all around building a brand on Facebook. How do you find your passion, turn it into a purpose, and take it all over the world? If we don't have the right mindset, which I'm going to share today, it doesn't matter what tools you have, it doesn't matter what technology you have, it doesn't matter what analytics you have, it doesn't matter what data you have, none of that matters if you don't have the right mindset around community, around building community, creating community. Now, whenever I get asked to talk about brand building or social media today, I always have to start with this disclaimer that I'm going to share with you. And that's because when I get asked to speak about these things, people usually look at the views I've had. So we've had 3 billion views in the last 18 months. Right? Thank you so much. And for me, that's not views. For me, that's people's lives touched. That's hopefully people's lives changed, people's lives moved, people's lives transformed. And on top of that, we now have over 25 million people across social media following me on various platforms, wanting to find answers, passion, purpose. But I've got to start with this disclaimer because it's so honest and it's really how I feel about everything I do today. And that is this. Number one, I did not start making content to build a brand. I did not start making content to build a brand. I started making content because I had a message I wanted to share that I hoped would help people. Like, that's honestly why I started. It wasn't about building a brand. It wasn't about having a page. It wasn't about having a website. It was just for the desire to want to serve people through my content. Second thing, I've never used ads or marketing, right? None of my views, none of my followers have come from ads or marketing. Nothing I've done online since I started has been ads-based. It's been totally 100% organic. So if you ask me how to use a Facebook ad, I'll tell you I don't know how to do it. Literally, because I don't know how to do Facebook ads. I literally do not understand it. I have no idea. So if you have a question about Facebook ads, don't ask me. I have no idea. And the number 3 disclaimer is I did it with zero investment. When I started, I had no money to start with to invest in this. I taught myself how to edit. I borrowed my friend. I didn't borrow my friend's camera. I literally borrowed my friend who owns the camera. And we went out together and shot the videos. He was kind enough to do it for free for me when we first kicked off. And I didn't have any money or capital to invest in it. And I share these because I want you to recognize how much this is so possible from whatever stage you're at. Whether you already have a booming brand, whether you already have a booming content page, or whether you're just starting out like I was 2 years ago, this is possible for each and every single one of us. Whether you don't have money, you don't have any of that, all you need is time, energy, enthusiasm, and discipline, right? Discipline is huge. Here's a Google search that I actually did last night. So I do these always the night before, so they're right up to date, and then I send the PowerPoint the night before I present. So you have millennials are lazy, stupid, entitled, right? And then I did another search for Gen Z, and here's Gen Z. Lazy, conservative, poor communicators in the workplace. That person really thought it through. What a search. Generation Z are not millennials. Great observation. And Generation Z is doomed. Now, if you imagine being a millennial or a Gen Y or a Gen Z, and seeing that, and that is literally, that was my search, just Generation Z are. If that's what you think about yourself, if that's how employers view you, it changes how you approach workplaces. It changes how you approach employers. It changes how you feel you are viewed and how you view your future of work. We know that strengths is on the rise, the amount of strengths testing in organizations, I'm sure you're already doing it. But this is what the future generations are crying out for. It's been ignored for so long. People have done jobs they've hated for years. People have done jobs that don't bring out their strengths and passions for years. People have done things every single day for the last 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years that they don't enjoy because it pays the bills. The people coming through now, all the millennials and Gen Z, are looking for a bit of this, a bit of engagement according to their natural skill set, a bit of engagement and recognition for their other skills and qualities they can bring to the table, a bit of engagement around their true meaning value, which will allow them to feel more fulfilled in the workspace. That is their demand. It's an order, right? Young people all over the world today want mentors in organizations. If they're inspired by the mentors yours builds, they will stay with you and be able to create the greatest impact that you could ever imagine. Thank you so much for taking part. So grateful. Thank you for your time. Well done.